After scrolling around online for a while here and there, I've started to notice something. For most people, writing doesn't matter. All those intricate details and techniques used to convey the story doesn't matter to them. The only thing they care about is their entertainment and enjoyment. So, for a second, think about some of your favorite anime, manga, movies, TV shows, and songs even, and ask yourself, did the writing matter? For someone who actually enjoys the art of writing a story, I found it intriguing that so many people just don't care. I mean, it makes complete sense, but for so many people to disregard the building blocks of every story is appalling. And in this video, I'd like to find the reason as to why that is, and find the answer to this question. When I see people get into this debate, I usually see someone defending a series that I personally think isn't so good, but what they find so appealing about whatever they're defending is the vibe. Nathan Zed made a good video about it actually, but more than anything, all some people care about is how the story makes them feel. In music, for example, it's clear that people want to hear something that captures a mood they can relate to easily. That's why some songs that may very well be masterpieces do not get as much love as they deserve compared to the fun pop songs. One is quite simply just way easier to digest over and over again. It's the same for stories. Something like, Berserk, which is so focused on its concise story and characters, may be a turnoff for some, if you weren't turned off by many other things, because on top of all that, the vibe of Berserk isn't exactly easily accessible compared to something like a Studio Ghibli movie. Disregarding the fact that they have two different demographics, one is more accessible and easier to consume mentally to the average Joe. The vibe of Ghibli movies in general are just way easier to latch onto. To add on, just think back to when you were younger. If you struggled to do long division, I doubt you were able to tell the difference between a good and bad movie. As long as it had the right tones and themes that made you feel good, aka it had the right vibes, then it was good to you, no matter what Rotten Tomatoes had to say about it. Furthermore, let's look at what most people, the logical people, think the best animated new gen is. Okay, Fire Force. No, alright. My Hero. Yeah, okay. What about Demon Slayer? Wow. What about Black Clover? yeah, I know. So that means it's Jujutsu Kaisen. Obviously a subjective statement, but personally me and people in their right minds believe JJK is the best new gen, not including those that don't even have a first season, because it'd be Chainsaw Man, but that's a debate for another day. Anyway, if you watched or read Jujutsu Kaisen, especially past the first season, it's clear that the author Geiji Akutami wanted to show one thing and one thing only: boxing to the highest degree. JJK is the definition of a battle manga. The biggest arcs are filled with battle after battle, and the exposition sometimes drags. In fact, anything story related besides maybe the character writing takes a back seat. I'm talking like the plot is at the back of the bus, and there's a few characters sprinkled here and there, but the driver's seat and the first 4 rows are reserved just for the fighting. A lot of people wonder why such an anime and manga are praised so much, and it's simple. It's fun. Watching decently and some amazingly well written characters box is cool. It's the type of vibe that we like, to the point where the story itself even takes a back seat in our enjoyment because plots is boring. Sometimes when the plot is more at the forefront than things like characters, moods, and aesthetics, the audience can be easily put to sleep. This is because it can become very apparent that the author is trying to build up to certain points in a story rather than trying to make the most of what is currently happening. The anime I felt this in was Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Though it was once seen as the greatest anime of all time and has one of my favorite characters, Roy Mustang, whenever I look back at it, I barely feel anything. Yes, the story was amazing. Yes, it has one of the best final arcs and endings in any anime and manga I've consumed, but I don't have any real attachment. The feelings I have to it outside of purely the plot are so shallow. Personally, I think this is because it was only one character I really liked, a pretty bland aesthetic, and nothing else to really offer me than a good story. The main characters, for example, Ed and Alphonse, just felt so okay to me, and made me realize that I find more enjoyment elsewhere. I realize now that maybe you are right. Writing doesn't matter. If you believe that writing doesn't matter or enjoyment is better than writing, then you are ignorant to the truth. Everything in a story is writing, no matter if it is visual storytelling or not. The author thought about it and wrote it down. If a story magically gives you good vibes, thank the author and their writing. They wrote the things that accumulated into giving you that feeling. If you enjoy characters like Luffy but dislike characters like Eren, you don't think enjoyment is better, you like the way Luffy was written. You like his cheerful and childlike nature and his subtle character development compared to someone like Eren with extreme character writing that is far too intricate to put into this video without adding at least another 5 minutes. Or maybe you like characters with more intricacy and development. It is all subjective based on your taste in writing. What I said earlier wasn't complete nonsense. Though I love Fullmetal Alchemist, I do think some of the writing is a little lacking, leading me to not be attached to the series, compared to something like, I don't know, Naruto, which I can say I have more attachment to even though the story is not the greatest in my opinion. The writing of certain elements in Naruto piqued my interest far more than Fullmetal, leading me to find more enjoyment. Once again, it's all subjective. I find a lot of enjoyment in a series like JoJo's, even though I know that the writing of the plot can be very flawed at times, but in other elements, the writing shines so brightly that I can look past the faults and find entertainment. And I feel like this is what people really mean when they say enjoyment trumps writing. Or maybe they just meant enjoyment trumps the plot, and the whole debate was started over miscommunication. As I was in the middle of editing this video, I saw a TikTok on this same subject, and someone said more specifically that people were getting confused with depth in writing, and I thought I should include my thoughts on this before closing out the video. First and foremost, yes, I agree. I do not think depth correlates into enjoyment directly, or inherently makes something better. However, depth is also something the writer can influence by the writing, is it not? What does matter is how the author executes this use of depth in the story, which correlates to their writing skills. An example I thought of was the movie Us. From what I know, the movie has a lot of depth, yet I didn't find that much enjoyment out of it. I felt like the movie itself was pretty average. I didn't like the way some things were executed, including the depth. If we look at another movie by Jordan Peele, Get Out, it's obviously filled with loads of depth as well, but the way the overall story was executed was much better in my opinion, and the depth was like a cherry on top to make the themes and morals of the story hit harder. This is simply my opinion, and someone can definitely argue against what I just said, but I do stand by my points in that yes, depth doesn't entirely matter in terms of enjoyment and entertainment. However, it should still be known that depth is still writing. To be honest, if the author can control it, 9 times out of 10, it probably goes back to writing. I also want to say that writing is hard. I highly doubt most of you have ever sat down and tried to write a good story like with your favorite screenplay writers and mangakas. I see so many people bash at anime like Naruto. Yes, it has its flaws, but none of you are making a story that cohesive and well written on a weekly deadline. Not even mentioning the fact that Kishimoto also has to illustrate the story as well. It is okay to critique, but mindlessly bashing stories is not. This debate is quite weird online, specifically TikTok, where they promote certain mindsets and opinions that should not be promoted so heavily. I think this whole debate started so people could safely say they prefer a series over another. Everyone loves Berserk and calls it the best and a masterpiece of writing. So saying that you prefer something like My Hero seems outrageous. But when you can say, oh, I just find more enjoyment with My Hero, but I know Berserk is written better, no, that isn't right at all, because quality in writing is subjective. Because the way the author portrays things will always directly affect your liking to it. Regardless, I just felt like giving my 2 cents on this discussion and hoping to kind of end it due to the fact that the person who is writing the story and how they write the story directly correlates to your enjoyment, but I digress. This was a fun video to make, especially since I tried to play devil's advocate most of the time before concluding. If you like this video, give it a like and consider subscribing.